Hi there. In immediate action, Andy McNab described selection in detail, uh, as well as quite a few of the other things, such as the counter-terrorist role. In this book, Seven Troop, he starts off after having passed selection, where he is sent to join the squadron, B Squadron, which at the time was in the Malaysian jungle. So he arrives in the jungle in his brand new camouflage kit, and him and the other guys who've passed selection have been posted to the squadron. They meet the squadron commander, Graham Lamb, and he very, very casually allocates them to a troop. You look like a climber, you look like a free faller, and that's it. There's no sort of question as to what you've done in the past and what you might like to do. So he's told to wait, and he's going to be collected by somebody from 7 Troop, which is the Freefall troop. And a giant called Tiny turns up and starts leading him back to the troop Basher area. And he says, what battalion are you from? And Andy says, second. And Tiny says, oh yeah, I was 2 para as well. He said, no, not the paras. I was light infantry, green jackets. And he feels a bit of an idiot when Tiny says, well, we've got this new guy and he's not even a para. Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, he meets the rest of the troop. And it's a little bit confusing in parts because some of these guys appeared in the previous book, Immediate Action, and sometimes he changes the names or the nicknames around a little bit. Then he's taken through some jungle lane training, and it's totally different from what he did in continuation in the jungle. B Squadron or the troop had their own way of doing things, and he has to get into their swing. And then he meets some more B Squadron characters. They're all sitting around telling stories and so on. Snapper, whose book Soldier Eye I've reviewed previously, is one of the more outrageous characters in the squadron. So he meets them. And then they deployment's over. They go back to Hereford, and there's a build-up for Northern Ireland, and he does some of this. And what I found interesting, by this time Snapper's on CRW, Counter-Revolutionary Warfare Wing, and as an instructor, and Andy McNab's just slotted into the room combat. Issued the black kit and get into the stack. No crawl, walk, run, nothing. Live fire in the killing house straight away, and then also vehicle drills for Northern Ireland. And it's obviously a very, very steep learning curve. Anyway, he then has to go off and do his freefall training. And there's a really funny story. I won't spoil your enjoyment of the book by telling you what the story is about a guy who joined the Foreign Legion. So he's already talked quite a bit of detail about freefall in the previous book. Then he rejoins the troop who are over in Northern Ireland and gets into the swing of things over there. Operations in Northern Ireland. There's a certain amount of tension within the troop, which you tend to get with strong characters. I've seen 2 guys with exactly the same, 2 who were both sergeants in special forces, arguing about tactics and really heated, having absolute diametric ideas on tactics, and that's the kind of guys they are. And as Lofty once said, One regiment guy says to another, problem with this regiment is you can never get any two guys to agree on anything, and the other guy says, yes, you can. So there's a certain amount of argument going on in Northern Ireland, and the kind of it all builds up to the terrible, tragic loss of Al Slater, who we'd already met in immediate action, but we meet him a lot more in 7th Troop. He was came from Parachute Regiment and was a very, very keen freefaller, and in some ways he had been the new guy before Andy, so he's kind of took Andy under his wing and guided him a little bit as to what you needed to know. And it hit everyone really, really hard, obviously. And it was Andy who was sorting out Al's weapons, and he found out and announced to everyone that Al had actually returned fire. He'd gotten shots off. Then there's all sorts of rotations, old man, Belize, and so on. Andy is tapped on the shoulder by the colonel, or by the head shed in general, to go to the deck, to 14th inch, and he doesn't want to go, and eventually he's told he's going, and some guys from other squadrons have gone round and given everyone the gypsies warning, we don't want anyone volunteering for the deck, 14th inch. You know, guys join the SAS for a particular reason. They don't want to be attached to other units and things like that in general. However, the colonel, Andy Massey, at the time, it was his idea, and in hindsight it was probably a very good idea for both organisations, for the SAS and for the DET. The cross-fertilisation certainly helped in the long run. So and Andy does freely admit that he gained a lot from his time at North Det. Anyway, Frank Collins, who's also prominent in the book, and whose book that I reviewed a while ago, and he leaves. He leaves the regiment and pursues other things. Basically, first of all he goes off to Sri Lanka. That doesn't last long. Becomes a bodyguard, and then really gets into religion in a big way. Meanwhile, Nish Bruce, who's another main character, who's a real expert freefaller, previously was one of the Red Devils, he's really going off the rails as a result of Al's death. And it all comes to a head. Paul Hill, or Hillbilly, has committed suicide while on a secret job in the Far East, and the details are still murky now, but everyone believes that he was murdered. So then Frank kills himself, and Nish Bruce kills himself. So he had 3 suicides, or supposed suicides, amongst the guys from the same troop, which is both appalling and rather worrying. Then towards the end of the book, he is pursuing opportunity. He first of all he goes to the wing, the secretive part of the SAS, and then he's wooed into joining a security company set up by one of the D Squadron guys, and leaves the SAS and writes Bravo 20. He tells the story of that, and how he was taken to Sandhurst to deliver a lecture while at the same time, some armchair generals on television saying he should never have read the book, written the book, and so on. So it really is a very detailed insight into his career in the SAS and in particular in the Freefall troop. And he's already noted as being a terrific writer. Funny in parts. Obviously, there's a lot of tragedy in this particular book, but it really is gripping from start to finish.